So I'm going to be painfully honest, even more so than usual. This is probably why I haven't been posting much lately. There's a couple layers to it. Maybe you could say I've been having a crisis of faith, but it's really more like faith in myself, as well as not knowing how to convey faith to others. By the way, if you're new to this channel, thanks for tuning into Bipolar Brilliance. My mission is to break down stigma for persons with bipolar disorder, people living on the bipolar spectrum, and also to show that it is absolutely possible to live and thrive brilliantly on the bipolar spectrum. So thanks for tuning in. So now, what I've been up to. Okay, first, I actually want to give props to the How to ADHD channel and Jessica also for showing your vulnerability and doing an awesome job of educating people. The last video about imposter syndrome, which was just I think within the last week, was very well timed because it basically put a name on something that I've been experiencing as that, as well as I usually don't have YouTube autoplay on, but it autoplayed the longer episode about the comorbidities with Dr. Patrick something on How to ADHD, and it was also like ticking off boxes and very educational, but with the perfectionism and so on and so forth. It's been a struggle because basically I've been trying to make this perfect bipolar 101 toolkit, and it's kind of like I know what I do and what works for me to stay balanced with bipolar disorder. Also, I have ADHD and apparently OCD. So, and some traumas, maybe not the trauma with a capital T, but certainly some traumatic events that I've been through. Really getting hung up on something like finding a really awesome acronym instead of just putting it all out there as the alphabet soup that it is, the a la carte menu that it really is in real life, IRL. Sure, I'm just one person with bipolar disorder, and that's me being humble, but it's also maybe sometimes the imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to go out there and tell people exactly how to manage bipolar disorder? Alas, the balancing, it's hard. It's like I don't want to go out there and claim to be the be-all, end-all. And I give that disclaimer all the time. I'm not a doctor. I don't give medical advice. But then on the flip side of it, it's like, well, hey, I am a health educator. I have over a decade of experience working as a coach in various capacities. I'm a behavioral health professional, and I'm someone that has been from, we'll just say, a bottom with bipolar disorder and co-occurring substance use disorder, having lost a lot of things, jobs, relationships, money, you name it, dignity, freedom, and having built better, achieved things that I almost had given up on ever achieving, like getting a master's degree, getting a whole bunch of letters after my name, some of which have expired, but anyway, the MS doesn't expire. Woohoo! Thank God for that. Anyway, and just like, it's not a big deal to me now, but there was a time when it definitely was. when I got that BS in dance, and I was very proud of that, and as I damn well should be, because it took me until almost the age of 30 to finish my bachelor's degree, partially because of undiagnosed conditions, behavioral health, mental health conditions. So I do the ramble tangents. Thank you so much, Monica, for that phrase. And yeah. So I don't edit these videos, so basically right now I'm just kind of pausing so I can collect myself so you don't have to sit there and listen to me go. So anyway, point being, apparently I do have a lack of belief in myself on some level, which is interesting observation given the second half of this, which is that one thing that I realized, that I really realize, and you know, as a coach, working as a coach in a recovery field with people that are in crisis, the faith. I guess I just want to say that, like, having something else to live for, having a faith in a higher power, a spirit of the universe, a force of greater good, some sort of moral compass even, just the general belief that things ultimately do, that goodness actually does prevail. I'm obviously not talking about a religion. I'm not, although there's nothing wrong with that. That is something that I guess especially in where I live, it's not really something that people usually want to talk about or touch. Kind of the way I was raised as well, with like recovering Catholics that were kind of subject to the worst sides of organized religion, and who would want to subscribe to something where, you know, you're basically just suppressed from speaking your mind and weirdly punished for just being, you know, a normal kid misbehavior. So I wasn't raised with any kind of organized faith, and yet I guess at a very young age I decided, and I prided myself of my rational thinking. Actually, it was a whole other part of my story, because I don't feel like I don't know, it's weird. Like, I sometimes think the bipolar thing has something to do with like me having felt like I didn't act on emotions for the first half of my life. Anyway, I read a book actually called A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. It's still one of my all-time favorite books, and it blew my mind at 10 years old, because they go into the microcosm and like the macrocosm. It just made me think about, you know, the infinitely small and the infinitely large, and to me, I worked out it is very logical for if there are things that we know the universe is infinitely vast, then why shouldn't there be things that are infinitesimally small that science just has not yet figured out how to measure, to track, to observe? Because see, they go inside of like a cell, and it's this whole solar system, right? I mean, it almost, the way we learn about the structure of an atom, like the very inside is, you know, the nucleus, and then you have the electrons in orbit rings on the outside, right? Kind of like our solar system. And so there's this whole world. So it was fascinating. It was so fascinating, and it got me to think that it seems logical to me that we should be perhaps animated by some infinitely small essence that I called a soul. I didn't make up this word, obviously, but just and so that we all have souls, and so that was something that I chose to believe. And then throughout my life, also just I feel like I'm a pretty intuitive person. I've had a lot of like straight up premonitions throughout my life, a lot of the time through dreams and just contact with the spirit world, or just like waking sort of impressions, and just synchronous things that had led me to believe in universal consciousness. Also, you can look at how like inventions sometimes throughout history, pop up in the same places, different parts of the world, and even prior to like everyone basically being able to see what we're doing via the interwebs. There was the interweb of the universal consciousness, and I have felt that I've been tapped in. I've sometimes, to my chagrin, seen brilliant ideas that I've come up with that, like spirit put in my brain, and I didn't realize them, and then seeing someone else become rich off of them. Well, hey, but at least I looked at it on the bright side, which I also always say I'm a hopeless optimist, meaning that I'm always going to eventually err on the side of being optimistic. You can't get that out of me. That's what I mean when I say that. Plus, I kind of like the punniness of it, or whatever you want to call it. Or double whatever, ambivalence. Yeah, that. Shit, I derailed. So I just chose to, rather than being irked about the fact that I didn't get wealthy off of some idea that I didn't do anything with, that somebody else did. I'm sure we'll see more of those in the future. Got your number, Google? No. I say, well, hey, I'm grateful because I'm tapped in. Okay. So the point is that I have so many reasons to have an unwavering faith in God, Spirit, Shiva, Yahweh, Allah, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter because it's something that's like beyond words anyway. Love, light, source, the vortex. And I think that has gotten me through and gets me through on the daily. And I don't know how to teach that. I also apparently don't always have that same unwavering faith in my human self. That's a part of my work. I'm a big fan of subconscious reprogramming for that. But I guess this is the best that I can suggest for now. For those that maybe don't feel like they can believe in a sort of spiritual essence, a God, a higher power, a benevolent force that ultimately prevails. Or even just an interconnected meaning to things beyond what we can understand or hope to document or see with our rational minds. I would say it is a choice. I mean, and that really is the logical thing. I think that I am a big fan of logic. To me, it makes logical sense to believe in, let's just say God for shorthand. It's really not my favorite, but I use it a lot being an English-speaking American. It took me a while to come to terms with that, but anywho, let's just say that Yeah, can I prove it? Like, no. I had a I'm off on a slight tangent here. I had a philosophy of religion class back in the day, and this professor was so obsessed with disproving disproving the existence of God, because based upon, people that take the holy books verbatim, literally, and they contradict themselves, and they disprove the existence of a benevolent, beneficent, omnipotent, whatever, omnibenevolent God. Therefore, it was like God doesn't, God doesn't exist. I mean, what am I trying to say here? No, man, you really cannot hope to prove with science the existence of a God. Yeah, probably not. The best is probably E equals MC squared. That all matter is energy. And I don't know. I guess supposedly like quantum physics has some really I do think that at the intersection of the far reaches of science and the far reaches of religion, they do meet, but it's probably way beyond our human little brains to understand. Yeah. And yet, one can choose to believe. And one can choose to believe upon the rational basis that it makes them feel better. Like, that's what I do. And I will even say sometimes, well, I choose to believe this. Like, and there are like some things that I choose to believe so strongly that I'm just like, I know it. Like how I said goodbye to my grandpa in a dream, while he was actually passing over. And in the dream, he was passing over, and there's more to it. And I could say, yeah, I choose to believe it. I don't have any proof of it, but in my spirit, I know it. But even if it's a choice. If it makes your day-to-day life better or more interesting, and it doesn't hurt anyone, including yourself, then what's the harm? I choose to believe in reincarnation, and I don't have any evidence of it, but sometimes it makes layers of my life very much more interesting. Now, there's a caveat, because there's that whole thing with like psychosis and delusions, and that's like a whole nother chapter. So I think that's where it kind of comes into like, is it interfering with your ability to function, right? Like, are you a harm to yourself or others? Are you completely out of touch with reality? And that actually brings me, this is a whole nother chapter, I'm not going to get into it, is about self-awareness. And I had this similar perplexed struggle with how on earth do I teach people self-awareness, because that is another thing that I think is a key component to recovery and living and thriving with bipolar disorder. And at first I didn't really think that you could teach self-awareness, but I actually think you can through tracking. But that's for a whole nother, if I had $1 for every time I said whole nother in this video, which is going on 20 minutes long, so it's time to wrap it up, and come to some sort of punctuation mark. We're going to leave it to be a question mark. What do you believe? I mean, in a general way, or specific if you want to, but I'm not really looking to get into a religious debate. Just like, do you feel that your faith, or the lack thereof, have affected your ability to be mentally stable and well and healthy living on the bipolar spectrum, or with other, related mood disorders? So I would really love to hear what you think. I really want to give you a pat on the back for making it to the end of this video, and I hope you got something out of it. I'm just putting it out there as usual, unedited, unfiltered, because I just am who I am right now, and if I tell myself that I'm gonna go make it all wonderful and perfect, then it's just never gonna get done. So this is how it is right now, and it ain't what it ain't. So take care of yourselves and each other. We'll talk again soon.